Lonnie, we have
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying, Lonnie, we have one more person that might be joining us, but she's just going to be observing because she wanted to join and observe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep an eye out for whoever joins and let them in. This is our Q2 cohort for Sales Platoon, big group, always full of questions. So happy to introduce HubSpot. Please feel free. You've done this before, 20 minutes about or 15 minutes about you, your background, how you came to Sales Platoon. Anybody else who wants to introduce themselves, or not Sales Platoon, HubSpot. And then, whatever you want to talk to them about, I'm sure they're anxious to ask questions. So I'll hand it over to you.
All right, cool. Thanks, Lonnie. And thanks, everybody. I know we're your barrier and obstacle until lunch, so we promise this will be worth your while for sure. I wouldn't be me without a visual, so I'm just going to share my screen really quick and just wanted to give a big thanks for welcoming all of us from HubSpot to join for Lunch and Learn. I promise we're not going to talk at you the whole time. The format today is going to be pretty casual. If you have lunch with you or some snacks, feel free to join, have some snacks too. I might have a little munch here and there. But no, just super excited to be here with all of you, especially as we're a big supporter of Sales Platoon, especially because we understand how much of a hurdle it is to jump into tech sales because it's not an exact science like say computer science. So there's just so much to learn and so many different schools of thoughts out there too. So we're just so happy to be part of the landscape there. And I'm joined by two fellow HubSpotters who are actually going to be the stars of the hour because in this format, we're going to do it very much like fireside chat style. I have some questions that I think many of you are probably wondering, and also some questions that were sent to us by Raleigh as well, just to help kind of guide the conversation. But definitely have just some guiding questions for both the HubSpotters that I'll introduce in a second. And then we'd love to do an open Q&A as well, just so that you get a chance to leverage their perspectives and really be able to learn from them. So before we get into the actual chats, let's do the introductions first off. So my name's Viennie, by the way. So if you're wondering how to pronounce my name, I'm Viennie. I am a team lead for our recruiting team here at HubSpot. So my specific team works with what we call our emerging talent population in the world. So when we say emerging talent, we mean anyone who wants to break into the world of tech. So not just students, but also folks who are transitioning from different backgrounds. And so that's why we really love working with veterans and being a great support of this program, because I think that pathway, especially for veterans and transitioning into tech sales is not easy. And we really want to create that pathway and access to make sure that it's a smooth and seamless one at that. So if you have questions about recruiting and jumping into sales roles at HubSpot, I'm your guy, but I'm also going to be your host for our fireside chat for the hour. So excited to see all of you. And I'll also be here to share more about what it's like to work as a BDR, for example, which is our entry-level role here at HubSpot for sales. So I'm happy to chime in there. But I'm excited to more spotlight Sam and Jamie, who are actually both tenured sales reps at HubSpot, also veterans as well, who have not only transitioned into sales, but have had some really remarkable sales careers, both in and outside of HubSpot. So I'm excited to highlight them the most. And I wanted to make sure I gave them a chance to introduce themselves. So Sam and Jamie, I'm going to have Sam go first. If you could share name, role, we have it here on the screen, but name, role, how many years you've been at HubSpot, and how did you transition into sales, just at that, and also how you're a veteran as well, because I want to make sure that you are able to share your background there too. So yeah, so Sam, do you mind if I have you go first and then Jamie afterwards?
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to jump in here, and thanks, Viennie, for kind of introducing us and organizing everything. And it's great to meet everyone on the call today as well. But again, my name's Sam, obviously. I work here at HubSpot. I've been here almost 4 years at this point. Mid-market sales, so there's different segments within HubSpot that you can sell into. I'm in that middle tier, we call mid-market. And I've been here 4 years. Prior to that, I was at a couple of startup companies, both out of Atlanta, that were smaller. So HubSpot has, like, Jamie and Viennie might know this better, but around 7,000 employees, I want to say. So we're a larger company. I was at smaller tech startups that had one at 30 employees, the other one had 100. So a little bit different type of company and different type of organizational structure, but sold at those two businesses. I was a BDR at one for half a year. Was also an account executive at one, which I do now, and also led a sales team at one of those as well. Then prior to that, I was 5 years active duty in the Army and was an officer. Graduated college through ROTC. So that's kind of my story there. but happy to share more and get into the details.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. And also, Sam, do you mind, and Jamie too, do you mind sharing where you're based as well? Because I think we also represent different places.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'm remote out of Rhode Island. I'm just north of Newport, Rhode Island, if anyone's familiar with sort of the New England area. Big Navy population here. But yeah, contrary to popular belief, I'm in New England, even though I got surfboards all over my walls. So yeah.
I love it. And funny enough, so Sam and I also live in Rhode Island, but I'm based in Rhode Island, but I'm in the office today just to get out of my house for a second. But we have not met yet in person. So that's coming up soon, hopefully. So
Totally.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Sam, for being here. We love it. Jamie, how about you?
Hey, great to meet everyone. Jamie Manos. I'm one of the managers on our corporate or enterprise sales team. So we sell the largest customers. I was in sales here for 2.5 years, as well as some other tech startups prior to that. I actually left for 1.5 years and went to Salesforce, who probably most of you have heard of, and then came back as a sales leader about 1.5 years ago. Based out of Arizona, up in the mountains this week, just working and playing, and was a sergeant, 11 Bravo sniper qualified when I was in the service.
All right, cool. And this is a treat for me to actually be here with Jamie as well, just because when I first came to HubSpot 4 years ago, I scheduled some of his interviews when he was a sales rep. And then when I saw him come back, it was awesome. And the fact that he offered his time to come join us today. This is literally our first time seeing each other on Zoom or face-to-face. So this is a treat for me too. So thanks, Jamie, for being here. All right, cool. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing so this way we can actually have an open discussion and chat and be humans. But for the rest of the time, definitely just want to spotlight Sam and Jamie in terms of some questions I have, and then want to leave it open for an open Q&A. And then if there's any information you want to learn about HubSpot or how to pursue opportunities after the program, we can always talk about that, because that's always a question I get from Lunch and Learn. So if that sounds good, can you give me a thumbs up or just like a hell yeah in the chat? All right, cool. All right, sounds good. All right, so I want to start with the big question. Thank you, Ruben. Appreciate your enthusiasm with all the explanations. Love it. So yeah, I figured let's talk about just like, finding sales as just like a path, because I think oftentimes sales is never really like someone's number one path. It's always something that people tend to always find later in life or just by happenstance, by coincidence. So I'd love to ask you both, like, what was the thing that like really made you say, I want to try sales? And what were the steps that you took to like essentially try it out? So yeah, I'll leave it open for Jamie and Sam, whoever wants to jump in at first.
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of jump in. So I had sort of like an interesting path into sales. Like it wasn't something I even was on my radar at all, transitioning out of the military. I thought I was going to go to grad school or do something like completely different, go work for a government contractor type thing, which I did test the waters on. Like I went and worked for a contractor out of Virginia Beach for a little bit, which was great. But what attracted me to sales the most, I had an uncle that lived in Atlanta that was basically a recruiter for sales folks. And I chatted with him and kind of the same sort of ideas behind the military and sales. Like I started to see a lot of alignment, and one being like the true value of like a meritocracy of like being able to put a bunch of effort into something and seeing the results, like applying like a disciplined structure to a process and seeing the results on that process come to fruition. Like that really excited me. And I knew from a military background, like transitioning to that I would have a lot to give and a lot of, I thought I would have a leg up on a lot of folks. So that's kind of like what led me to it. And I ended up loving it. So it ended up being great, but I'm sure Jamie has a completely different story because who knows.
Mine is completely the opposite. I was like born and bred for sales. Like my first job, I was selling phone service for MCI, and I was 16 years old working part-time in high school. And I was like, holy shit, I can make a lot of money. This is pretty cool. And so I went to college for a couple years, didn't love it, joined the Army, had fun. It's not a very lucrative profession. being an E5 in the military. And so I transitioned into, I'd done some B2B sales for a manufacturing company. And then honestly, I got super lucky getting into tech 9 years ago. Funny enough, I was just young, unprofessional. On LinkedIn, I had a picture of me in uniform shooting a 50 cal because I thought that was professional for LinkedIn at the time. But the VP of sales at this little tech company, Acton, was an avid shooter. Interviewed me even though I was grossly underqualified for tech. And I crushed. I mean, to Sam's point, I think some of us are wired a little bit differently. And in tech, they don't always get a lot of military people. And just the drive and perseverance to get things done. I quickly moved up to the top of that sales org. And then have since just kept leapfrogging my career, honestly, over about the past decade. So I love it. I'll never transition out of sales. I'll probably never transition outside of like technology software sales. And yeah, it's fun.
I love that. I can hear almost the addiction in your voice, which is cool. So I think that's amazing. Maybe addiction's the wrong word, but just like how much it's just really kept you and energized you. So I think that's really awesome. Let's talk about some of the ugly stuff a little bit, because I think both of you definitely addicted to closing big deals. Absolutely. Yep. I think one of the things that like is something that maybe isn't always openly talked about. It's just like when you make that transition, when you finally get that first job in sales, like it's not always rainbows and fun. It's really hard. It's very, there's challenges. Sometimes you kind of question your worth, and just a lot of emotions kind of just are on the haywire when you start your first sales role. So I'm really curious from both of your perspectives, like what were some of the big challenges and hurdles that you needed to overcome when you had your first sales job? Like, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to think way back, but there were a bunch. I think specifically I was fresh out of the Army. Like, it was like a month out, and I was in a tech company where people were looking like I do now, which is not how I looked back then. Snapback on and wearing whatever, playing like cornhole in the office, drinking beers at lunch. I was like, what is this place, man? It's like Animal House. And I didn't know how to fit in because I was so used to like such a structured, regimented process within my day-to-day that I was just like it was a culture shock for sure. And then just like kind of the way you communicate with folks. I'm used to being like super direct, like saying what I mean, and like maybe using words that might come off as crass to folks that aren't used to it. Those are some of the things that I remember vividly as being like, whoa, this is wild, but can also be an advantage, which I can definitely speak to, but I'd be curious what Jamie thinks about that.
That brought a smile to my face, especially as I got into people leadership here. I've definitely had talks where they're like, you can't say that. Like, you can't just yell at someone for not doing their job. And it's hard, right? Like, we want to believe that everyone can be held accountable, and you could tell them to do something and that they're going to own it. And it's, something I brought to the interview process when I was going for manager, again, not just within sales, but now leading a sales team. And they love that background of mine. But my VP, he's like, you have to understand, like, these people don't have a contract tying them in here being owned by the government. Like, they are at will employees, and sometimes it's carrot, sometimes it's stick, but it's a mix of both. And it's not just stick, which is different than the infantry. And so that it's certainly different at times when someone doesn't hold up their end of the bargain and you just want to rage on them. But things all work out. And when you put it into perspective, I mean, I have a very cushy life. So I'm very thankful for that.
I was going to say, I mean, that's definitely something that's really hard to sort of overcome. So I'm kind of curious, like, how did you both like reset, really come to terms with that and try to like maybe adapt to the new environment you're in? Because I think that's I think probably something that if you could tell yourself something different, like what would that be? And by the way, I saw Georgina, he was like fist pumping when Sam, you were talking about like the culture, by the way, so I wanted to call that out. But yeah, but what was the thing that like just helped you reset and just like helped you adapt? Because that's hard to unlearn something.
For
Yeah,
me,
for sure. Oh, go ahead, Jamie. Now you're giving.
yeah, I mean, I would say everyone's motivated differently. For me, it was finding out that like in sales, you have unlimited earning potential. And sometimes you just got to stay in your lane and deal with some BS, but you can completely change your life. I mean, I grew up very lower middle class, not a lot of opportunity, funded my own college, to now, I mean, we own 3 houses. I'm up at the mountains at our cabin, just spent a week and a half working from the beach in San Diego. Again, it's like there is unlimited potential in tech sales. You could completely own your career. You can own your own development. If you don't like the company, you can leave the company. And that's awesome. Like I definitely stumbled with some companies that weren't great, and I didn't like the hurdles or the leadership team, whatever it might be, but there's unlimited potential out there. And like that excites me, and I keep my eye and my focus on that. And the rest is easy enough to get through. Eric, you have a question?
Yes, I didn't know right now is a question and answer period, but I did have a question now that I get the time. Jamie, it was for you because I liked what you said a lot. First of all, what do you enjoy the most about tech sales? And secondly, what's the sales cycle as you're in corporate sales? Obviously, it's a lot longer of a time frame.
Yeah, I'll be fairly brief just due to time. Sales cycle varies a lot. I mean, we have some deals that might close in 2 weeks. We have some that take 5 months, 6 months, 7 months. Tech sales I love because like every company runs on technology, and luckily at HubSpot, this is a need to have, not a nice to have. I think there's a lot of companies that are nice to have softwares, and that's not somewhere I'd want to be in a volatile market. So specifically, I like working with marketers. I like working with heads of sales. And so I love like the industry that we're in and the kind of people that we sell to.
Thanks, Jamie. I appreciate it. I love the platform, and I've talked to a couple of other folks who are in tech. They love using HubSpot, so that's really cool and bodes well. So I appreciate the time. I'll be followed by Ruben.
Thanks, Eric. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time out to come speak to us today. I have a question, like particularly for Sam and Jamie. I don't. You guys were talking about like your frustrations. So just for expectation management, like just some of us like making that transition over on the other side. What were some recurring issues you guys were having with the people that didn't come from the same background as us? Like, what were the typical shortcomings that you would have to like deal with?
I think it was twofold. I think one would be like direct leadership was a little bit different. So you're going to be coming in more of a direct contributor role. You're going to have a boss that's most likely not going to be a veteran. I would say is probably a good chance of that happening. Just the way that they communicate might be a little bit different. Like expectations they have of you might be a little bit different. But for colleagues, it can be the same thing. I would say like they might communicate a little bit different. They might have different expectations of how you interact, but that disciplined structure and that sort of individual, I would say, devotion to a task and like completing some sort of opportunity for yourself is something that you can use to separate yourself from the pack. Because you can be an individual contributor that does amazing things regardless of the individuals around you, which I think Jamie just kind of spoke to. Like he crushed at his first company at Acton. And I think it was probably associated with that ability to be disciplined and take the lessons you learned from the military and apply it to a structure like a technology sales floor.
Jamie, anything you'd add there?
No, that was good. We have a couple of other questions, so I'm happy. Sam, I think you had your hand up first. If you want to jump in, man.
Yeah, so this one's for the other Sam. Great name. I gotta say, can't beat a Sam. Yeah.
Agreed.
And then for the both of you guys, you know, it sounded like you guys kind of started out with the smaller companies. If you were to go back in time, would you rather start out with a bigger company?
That's a tough question. There's good and bad. For all of you, and probably what I didn't realize back then, like I didn't have the opportunity to land somewhere like a HubSpot early on. Honestly, like these kind of programs didn't really exist. And the only way to break into tech sales was at a small startup. And I think that's why that's a lot of people's paths. That being said, I mean, sometimes those companies, I mean, to use a military phrase, like they don't know their ass from their elbows. There's no process. They're building the plane as they fly it. And a lot of frustrations can come there. Here, for like new college grads, sometimes they get pissed at all the red tape and all the process. But for someone like me that likes process and understands the value that brings, I feel like maybe that would have helped me in the transition rather than just like, again, flying by the seat of my pants and trying to solve problems while trying to sell deals.
And then Sam B, anything you'd add to that? And then Roman and Jeremy, I see your hands. I'm gonna keep you guys in the parking lot for a second because I just want to make sure we get through a couple other questions that Raleigh asked me to go through, and then I'll open up for Q&A to you guys. But I have you guys written down, so I'm not gonna forget you. Yeah,
And
Sam
then
B.
I just had one question for Vinny. So I pretty much did most of my adult life in the military.
Mhm.
So I have absolutely no idea about the interview processes at all, other than like, hey, how are you doing, and maybe answer some questions. What's more impressionable, you being the head of the HR, to you, and what do you look out for?
Yes, so I'm probably going to answer this a little bit more towards the end, because that's one of the questions that Raleigh asked me to tackle. But yeah, 100% great question. Long and short of it is we're very much super well process oriented when it comes to adding folks to our team. So a lot of it is based off of you being able to story tell about your experiences. So one thing that I want to sort of drop as like a nugget is that don't assume that we're going to know exactly what your experience is, because I think just to make it an equal playing field for everybody, we leave it to you to tell us what are some of the great experiences you've had, what are you celebrating, and allow us to see those. So this way we can really hear from your side, like what are some of the, again, accomplishments you've had, what are some of the great things that you've done. Allow us to hear those stories so that we can really see who you are and how you'll be additive to our team. I have more follow-up to that, but that's just like a really big thing is like, we want to hear about your experiences, no matter how vulnerable they are, because for us, it helps us understand who you are as an individual. Because at the end of the day, we are bringing people onto our team who are going to be helping business owners like essentially earn their livings, like to propel themselves into the world. And we do that in a very human way. And so it's, I think a better way of saying is we really try to have people help people instead of just like a robot helping a business. So in order for us to know that, like we need to know who you are as a person, and only you can do that, not us. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the interview process in a little bit, but great question, Sam. I appreciate that question so much. And we're going to talk about that towards the end for sure. But Roman and Jeremy, I did see your question, so I'm going to make sure I pick on you guys next. But I just want to make sure I go through a couple other questions before we go to the big Q&A. Is that cool with everybody? Yeah. All right, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna put it back on Jamie and Sam for a second. So just to make sure, because I know one question's on everyone's minds is like, once you're finished with Sales Platoon and you want to like jump right into the world of sales, I wanted to ask Jamie and Sam, like, what's your advice about which roles folks should target? Should they target a BDR role? Should they target an account executive role right away? At HubSpot, what is your perspective about that? I have my answer, but I want to actually ask you both that first.
Jamie, do you have thoughts on that? I feel like you'd have a good perspective there. No, I'll jump in.
Yeah, lots of thoughts on that. I'd say, truthfully, find a mentor, find someone that you can talk to. I don't know if that was a loaded statement, if Vinny was going to walk into that later. But like find someone where you can bounce ideas with. Like I did a similar session with this with a company called Dream Core Tech that helped underrepresented groups. And I met with someone and, we were hiring for a bunch of BDR spots, but through the process and digging into, his background and what he cares about, found out he's actually much more interested in recruiting and being a sourcer. And so we actually, pivoted and tried to change some training and development. I would say if you have no background in sales, you'll want to crawl, walk, run. You could shoot for an account executive spot, but like you might be punching above your weight class. We have an amazing company, and it would suck to foil an opportunity shooting too high, truthfully. So if you like sales, BDR is great. But if you don't know if you like sales, we have ISC roles that take inbound chats and inbound questions, and we have customer success team that help post sale. Like there's a lot of opportunities in tech, not just in sales. I'm in sales. I love sales, so I'll endorse that heavily. But it's not for everybody. I don't try and say that it's for everybody. So I'd say more so like think internally about what brings you satisfaction. And to what Sam said, we have 7,000 employees. Like we probably have a role that fits, your background and what you like to do.
Sam, anything to add there?
Yeah, that's really well said. I was gonna actually touch exact on the mentorship thing. Talk to a bunch of people, get a lot of opinions, especially if it's not something you've done before. Like sales is, again, not for everyone. I think it bodes really well to something like a military background, just naturally. But again, it doesn't mean you're going to be great at it or something that you actually really enjoy. I had a mentor that I worked with when I was in the military. And he told me, like, write down your key core values that you're going to take moving forward once you kind of transition, and like write your own sort of like mission statement for what you want to be doing. And that really helped guide me towards like the companies I should be looking at, the roles I should be looking at, and made the decision easy. But I started out in a BDR role. I think it really helped me like cut my teeth and understand like what it takes to be successful. And I think that I would highly recommend that even at a smaller company as well.
All right. I love that. Because yeah, I think oftentimes when folks graduate from sales platoon, it's either going right to account executive or going to BDR. There's no wrong answer here, but I think you'll find that kind of to what Jamie and Sam both said, when you try to go for a role that's above your weight class, like, you could spend more of your time learning the basics so that you can get to that weight class like faster. So for example, on our team, you can be a BDR for a minimum of 12 months and promote to an account executive. That is career pathing that we have on our team. I can't speak for every company, but as you explore different companies, like think about like those pathways, right? Like don't just think about what's that role that you have, but how are you going to grow? What's in place right now that's going to get you to that next role? So for example, BDR, the next progression from there is account executive. And then from there, you can either go up the ranks through our account executive levels. So like Sam, Sam, I think you're level 3 at this point, right? In the market.
Yes, I am.
Level 3,
Correct.
cool.
Yep.
Right. And then Jamie has gone through the manager route too. So like there's so many paths there that are so open to our folks internally. So just thinking about that piece, like thinking about like, what's that like first role you want to enter that's going to be in your weight class. And then if there's something that you want to do that you want to do long-term, like, is that path there? Just things to be thinking about, especially as you explore like first roles. Company. So that's why I wanted to kind of ask for Jamie and Sam's opinion there. And I was going to say, like, let's say you do go towards the BDR, which is usually the most frequent way for folks to enter this space. I'm kind of curious from Jamie and Sam's point of view, you both work with BDRs at HubSpot. So I'm really curious if you could talk about like what your experience has been like working with BDRs and yeah, what's it like working with them on a day-to-day? And you both have different perspectives because Sam, you have BDRs, Jamie, you work with BDRs, your reps work with BDRs. So really curious to hear both your perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, I work with them daily, so I have like a fresh sort of take on it.
Cool.
I love working with BDRs, and the reason being is that they're typically, it's like the easy way into a company, right? So it's an entry level sales position. The best BDRs that I work with are super motivated and very coachable and willing to do the work. And just, that's like as easy as it is. And it sounds like complicated. There's all these different metrics and things people are going to be looking at, but if you're coachable, motivated, and willing to do the work, you will be successful. And I think I would just keep it that simple, honestly. I love working with them. you can crush. And it's just being disciplined individually to be able to be successful in that role. And you can easily get out of it and be a direct seller and account executive position like I'm in now within a year, if you really trust the process. So that's what I would say.
Yep. Jamie?
I agree. I mean, it just takes some hard work, but what I do like, and not just about us, right? Any big tech company, the advantage is that there is this clear defined path where if you hustle and you produce results, you'll move up. And that's the other downside of a lot of the smaller tech companies is it's a gamble for them, honestly, right? Like at Acton, when I came in as an account executive, I watched plenty of BDRs hustle and put up good results for 3 years before getting promoted because there was no standard path. And if we could externally hire an account executive with experience, we would do that 9 times out of 10 rather than promoting internally. Where here, I mean, within every job, BDR, small biz, mid-market, corporate enterprise, we have multiple levels even within that. So there's kind of like micro promotions as you go along to earn money, to earn stock in the company. So yeah, again, just as you think about your role after the military, think about the job, but think about 5 steps ahead of that, right? Does that job set you up for where you want to be long term? And does that company have that available? Because companies like Salesforce, Adobe, HubSpot, Microsoft, there's just so much greenfield out there.
Awesome. Love that. Okay, I have one last question. Georgina's energy is like everything. One last question for Sam and Jamie, and then I want to open it up to the Q&A and make sure I have Roman and Jeremy go first because they haven't raised their hands. Interviewing. We're going to talk about interviewing a little bit, but wanted to just get your perspectives around like how would you go about interviewing, like in terms of advice for this group as they go about interviews after they finish their cohort here and their program. What are your tips for interviewing when it comes to like how should they prepare? What are some of the types of stories that that everyone should tell, and just like your thought process around like how to prepare for that?
I can start. Use any time that people will offer you, right? Like I know at HubSpot, our recruiters always offer to run prep calls, right? And I'm floored, and I'll always ask our recruiters because I'm on the interview process, hiring account executives for the interview team. And I'll always ask, like, did that rep book a prep call with you? Because it shows the preparation, how serious they are, whether they need it or not. So I would say, if you have someone that's willing to help you, don't go at it alone. Teamwork will always take you further. Probably have all heard that before. And then whatever company you're in process with, find people that have been there a couple of years on LinkedIn. Like I would say generally people want to help. And I've had plenty of account executives applying at HubSpot reach out to me and just say like, hey, can I spend 15 minutes with you? I just want to find out about it. I'd love to find out how I can position myself better. And I'll give anybody 15 minutes if they're serious and they want to be set up for success. And then to Vinny's point, if you don't have experience in sales, think about your transferable skills that you do have, whether it's determination, leadership, perseverance. I mean, HubSpot has our acronym HEART, which is humble, empathetic, adaptable, remarkable, and transparent. I would hope that all of you, if you really think about your experience in the military, you probably have really good examples, not in sales, but as to how you embody those values. That's going to set you aside from anybody else, honestly, or at least give you a fairly level playing field.
Love that. Sam, anything you'd add there?
I wholeheartedly agree. I think I remember my first few interviews, like coming out of the military and trying to explain sort of my military resume and transfer that into like civilian world was very weird and difficult. But what helped me get through it was practice, like talking to folks, like Jamie said, like taking the time if a recruiter would speak to me about it, like practicing through that and just asking for as much help as I could. And over time, I learned to be able to actually tell those military stories and like my background in a way where an audience that had zero understanding of that past was able to take something away from it. So I would definitely think about that. Like, what can I say to this person that has no idea what the military is? Just like assume they don't, and try to be able to get that point across, whether it's leadership, whether it's discipline, whether it's success that you had, or even failure. A major question they'll ask is like, tell me about a time that you just really fell on your face. And being able to take something that happened to you in the military, maybe you didn't pass a course, screwed up some board, and be able to like explain that in a way that's going to be meaningful, super beneficial. So just practice it with folks, family, friends, and see how they take it. That would be my advice.
Yeah, and Sam brings up a really good point, which is he mentioned the type of question you might be asked, which is, tell me about a time you did X, Y, and Z. Just as a preview for anyone who interviews for a job at HubSpot, whether it's for a BDR or an account executive role, most of your interviews are going to be in that format where we want to ask you, give us an example of a time where you did something, right? Those are questions where we're not asking you to tell us like, how would you generally think about it? Like, no, we don't want to hear what you've done. We want to hear like, where have you done it, and tell us. So no limits there, because we want to see, how do you think? How do you act through? How do you navigate through situations? Because those types of questions we're asking you, it's to help us see you in that role, whether you've had direct experience or translatable experience. So in a way, how you tell that story is where you have that control and is where you win. And you can probably think this is not a novel concept, because like as a salesperson, like how you tell your story, how you talk to your prospect is how you win deals and stuff. So this should not be a new concept, but it should be the same approach you take for interviews. And to Jamie and Sam's point, recruiters at HubSpot will always tell you before you even enter an interview, what is the objective? What kind of questions are you going to be asked? What will you be tested on? So for us, we test you on attributes that are related to the role. So we're always looking for folks who, yes, will add to the team, but also embody certain attributes that determine success for a role. I won't give you them here because there's a different set for different types of roles. But when you enter a process for a role, we will always tell you that. So this way you can think in advance, okay, what sort of stories can I tell? What should I prepare? So this way I can essentially bring those to the table. And to Sam's point, again, don't assume that we know everything from your resume and from your experience. Like pretend like we just have no idea who you are and we just want to be able to see it from a blank slate. Like that is your task. And if you walk away from an interview not being able to tell your story, then that's where, take that as a chance for improvement. But at the end of the day, as us as interviewers, we're just trying to see, how do you think through situations? And we're only going to know based on how you tell us that. So have raised everyone, oh, sorry, let me say this differently. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of the STAR method for interviewing. Okay, most everyone here. And I know Lonnie asked that we help with some interview prep too. So we are coming. Lonnie, I'm saying yes here. I forgot to email you back, but we're saying yes to help you with that, because that is how we interview all of our candidates. Again, just to make it fair, inclusive, and just equal cost across the board. Because to Jamie's point, we don't hire people just based off of previous sales experience. We just don't. Because everyone sells differently. Everyone has different perspectives. So like we wouldn't be a diverse team without that sort of tenet there. So yeah, so that's just my last point about the soapbox there. In case you want some like context on how we maybe approach it for the BDR role, I'm going to put something in the chat right now that can act as like a preview. So I'm just going to share this just to share like how our interview process is thought out and what you could prepare for that. Cool. Yeah, Jamie mentioned a couple of attributes that are tested actually in every sales role. So like 3 that he mentioned here, 1 out of 10, or sorry, 10 out of 10, you're going to be asked these questions. Cool. So I want to now, with the time we have left, like open up questions. I'm going to go to Roman and Jeremy, and then I'm going to answer Lonnie's question that's in the chat here, which is what is the best question you like to hear candidates ask during the interview process. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that afterwards. But Roman and Jeremy, since you've been very patient, I'm going to go to you. So Roman, if you're still here.
Yeah. Hey y'all. Now just before I forget, I'm the social media poster dude for Sales Platoon today. So if we could get a quick picture, I'll count down from 3. So 3, 2, 1. All right, appreciate it. That was all. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Oh, okay. So, do you have any questions while you're here?
No, I didn't have any questions. You had a lot of good information that the questions that did pop up. So no, I don't have any.
Okay, cool. Thank you then, Roman. Jeremy, let's go to you. I wasn't expecting that.
All right.
That was
First off, thanks for you all for coming and sharing your insights with us. Really appreciate that. My question is actually for Sam. Sam, how did you end up? So I guess what was your experience like with government contracting that made you decide to pivot to go to sales?
Great question, man. So, I got out of the. I think it's more of like a personal reason. So it's kind of it's gonna be a little anecdotal, but a lot of the reason why I got out of the military is that I was just redlining all the time. I was going hard, like just getting after it, and I got some injuries, was banged up a little bit, and was like, all right, am I gonna do this for 20 years or am I gonna get out? So I started looking out elsewhere, and like the easy choice is going to government contracting. Like had contacts with these companies I was looking at. Got into that organization. I think it was just maybe the organization I was in that I interviewed with and ended up working for a short period of time. But I went to their sales kickoff, and yeah, contractors have sales kickoffs. Their customer is the government. So it's like one individual you're selling to. But they had this big sales kickoff. And I remember one of their top contractors, got a Rolex that they were just giving to him as this gift, basically, for doing so well that year. And they said, this guy's put in 300 plus days on the road, and we just want to thank him for his service to the, this government contract or whatever. And I went back to my hotel room. It was this awesome hotel room looking over the ocean of Virginia Beach, and I was just had an existential crisis. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, man. I don't want to look back. And then everyone has their own reasons for getting out of the military or whatever it is, but it's I don't want to look back 20 years from now and miss out on all the things that make life great. And I think that Jamie can probably attest to this too, but tech is very flexible. We work remote. I don't have any kids, but I can guarantee I'll never miss a game. I'll be there for every birthday. Those are the things that I know are here, especially at HubSpot. That wasn't quite available at that contractor, but anecdotal, but that's kind of my awakening there.
nice.
I appreciate it. That's good information. I totally understand. 300 days gone.
Yeah, right.
Would have been the same call.
Yeah, exactly. So
Awesome. Jeremy, great question. Sam, thanks for your vulnerability there. Really great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go to Lonnie's question, then we're going to keep going with more questions after that. But Lonnie's question was, what is the best question you like to hear candidates ask during the interview process? So this is a good call out that also in any, at least sales interview you'll do, yes, we'll ask you questions, but then there's always going to be at least 5 minutes at the end where you will get the opportunity to ask questions. And that part of the interview serves two purposes. One is it's our way to test, at least in sales, your curiosity. As sales reps, at least at HubSpot, our goal is not to pitch. It is you're meant to be consultative. You're meant to ask questions and actively listen so you can actually pair solutions that actually matter to the person in front of you. Our best way to understand that is seeing how do you ask questions specific to the person in front of you. So not just asking what's your favorite part about HubSpot. I mean, you can always ask that. It's always a good thing to ask, but just to see what people love. But ask questions that only that interviewer will be able to ask you or answer for you, because they offer a perspective as a sales rep, manager, whichever, that is going to be unique to them. And that should be valuable for you as you assess a team, a role, or a company, which serves the second purpose, which is that part of the interview where you're asking questions. That is your chance to interview us as well. Because again, this should be an opportunity for you to assess if this is a good fit for you. Just like any good sales rep, you're there to qualify, you're there to see if that's a good fit for you mutually. So that's part of the interview that you should use that to your benefit. So to answer Lonnie's question, oh, sorry, Jamie, do you want to add to that? I saw you come off mute.
Yeah. So I'm on 4 to 5 interviews per week, probably. I'm on a lot of interviews. And I would say I only interview people with extensive sales backgrounds for the enterprise team, and someone can nail all of their questions, but part of our criteria is cultural fit, value add-on, right? Diversity and inclusion, right? Are we not just hiring the same profile? And one thing around these interview questions, there's no silver bullet question. It's natural curiosity. But if all 5 managers that were on the interview panel come back we all find out that they ask the same 1 or 2 canned questions to everybody, that person's a pass. If there's no curiosity, they're done. So I would say for yourself, any interview I've ever done, before I've gotten into them, I've thought of like, what are 10 questions I need to know about this company? Look up the person on LinkedIn, look up the company, you know, how's the sales team performance, whatever your questions may be, right? Make them specific, have things that you can rapid fire. And to Vinny's point, also try and think of things on the spot, but don't get caught flat-footed, because that's what separates bad, good, and great interviews is your ability. If you get 5 or 10 minutes, like how do you own that and show that you care and can think on your feet and ask meaningful questions? Because in sales, that's what we do. We ask meaningful questions.
Yeah, I love that. +1 to everything Jamie just said. And I think to Lonnie's question, I think that the answer is going to depend on the person, but I would definitely say everything Jamie said, and something else that should be in everyone's toolkit, which is probably a controversial question to ask, but asking at the end of the interview, what feedback do you have for me? Is there any concerns you have about me? Because one of the things that's so important about that question is if the interviewer is prepared to share with you, they're going to share with you what you did well and where maybe they had some lack of clarity, or maybe they didn't get a good picture of like how this story landed, for example. So it's your way to overcome that objection by sharing, okay, cool. Well, since you told me that I didn't have a great example for ownership, do you mind if I share a different example? And in most cases, when you're able to share a different example and overcome that objection, that not only just one lets you know, but two, it gives you the opportunity to like essentially recover. And yeah, most of the time that is what helps us kind of change our minds, because usually by the interview, we're already kind of having an idea about like, did this person pass? Yes or no? So yeah, that's a controversial question, but if anything, it's a great question to ask because it gives you live feedback in the moment, and it gives you a chance to just like pivot if let's say you've just had a flood story. So yeah, cool. So I hope that answered that question, Lonnie. Let me know if you have a follow-up.
Thank you. That was good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna go in order. I have Carlotta, who's been on deck for a while, and I'm gonna go to Sam and then Georgino. So Carlotta, floor is yours.
Great, thank you. I appreciate all of you all coming out today. My question is this: have you had someone who was not in sales but with the company who then wanted to pivot to sales after being in the company for a while? And is that a feasible opportunity for them?
Oh, happens all the time. But Jamie, I saw you come off mute. You want to answer?
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen that all the time. I mean, I've seen people transition into sales and transition out of sales. Again, that's a benefit of being with a several thousand person organization. I've seen a lot of people that have started as customer success or inbound sales consultant, or I mean, collections and billing, like anything. Generally speaking, you know, people see what we do, they like our software, and they know that the compensation's higher on the sales team than any other position. So it's certainly a good path if you aren't sure that, again, right, if you don't know that sales is the right thing, but you care about whatever company, HubSpot or anyone else, yeah, find the opportunity that fits.
Yeah, +1. Yeah, we see it all over the place. Yeah, to Jamie's point, we've seen people come from customer support, customer success. I just put something in the chat that said even one of our financial analysts made the pivot to sales by becoming a BDR, then moved into account executive, and he's now a team lead. Pretty incredible to see that. So yeah, so if you want it, you can have it if you go for it. But yeah, Carlotta, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, cool. Okay, great. All right, Sam, you next, then Georgino, and then I saw Daniel's hand.
Hey, so kind of bouncing off of what the other Sam was saying about being in the military, killing it. Now, I kind of felt like that same way too, but the one thing that I'm worried about is when I was killing it in the military, there was a sense of purpose. You know, you complete the operation, you know you're doing something. So I kind of want to see what your guys' perspective was, what your alignment and how HubSpot pretty much aligned with your purpose and what you want to do in life.
That's a great point and super insightful. I think it's something that, you know, I specifically struggled with. I was like, wow, like, you know, what do I do now? I didn't feel that sort of visceral, you know, tie to like the organization and things like that you have when you're in the military. What helped me, and I think I mentioned this before, is like I literally wrote down a mission statement for myself for like my life. I was like, I'm getting out of the military. Like I'm so used to having like a task and a purpose, or in my role, I was defining that mission and the task and the purpose for folks, that I still needed that. And even 5 years plus later, I still look at that, you know, once a week. You know, sometimes when I'm like feeling a little grayed out or a little sort of muddy on what I'm doing, what my purpose is, like you can go back to that and it gets you fired back up, at least for me, and like helps to steer the ship in the right direction to what you should be doing. I would highly recommend doing that. It's a little thing you can do, and you can always adjust it as needed too.
Cool. What you think, Sam? Did that help?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. All right, Regino, our fist pump champ, you're up.
Jeez, you guys just talking pumps me up here. But I want to thank you guys for coming first and foremost. You guys all seem like incredible individuals, and I'm a very philosophical guy, so I like to know, you know, why things happen, but your process and how you guys do things. But you know, I'm really curious here. Curious here. For my former active duty guys, a civilian, what was the hardest lesson you learned in sales? So like for the previous guys that we meet, they're like not caring, who gives a F, right? But I'm curious to each one of you guys, you know, what was the hardest lesson in sales? I know that we talked about environment and culture, but you know, in the hard, like in stuff, you know, working with like clients and whatnot, what was the hardest thing that you guys learned in sales?
Tough question to answer. I mean, I guess I would say that like it's on you to solve the problem, to sell the deal, to get it done. I mean, when I had started at Acton, like the way to get it done, it sucked, was working like 12-hour days, and doing a lot of cold calls, a lot of emails. Like there was unlimited opportunity. I just had to grind it out. It sucked. It was good when I was in my young 20s, but it's not what I want now. But it's just being able to be like, man, I don't have anyone that's gonna force this ownership on me. Like I either commit to this mission and make it happen, or I'm gonna roll. And then just sticking it out. It's easy in sales. You land with one good company and job offers start to come like you wouldn't believe. I haven't updated my resume in like 9 years. I bounce because I get recruited. But it's hard to keep yourself grounded and say like, do I believe in this company? Am I here for the long term? And like, can I keep solving it? You know, that's why I came back to HubSpot. I love what we're doing, and I think that we can, but it's hard in sales. I interview plenty of people that in 5 years have bounced 5 companies, and they keep taking the new shiny offer. But at some point it's too much bouncing, and you got to balance that. I don't know if that helps fully answer the question, but those are my jumbled thoughts.
Yeah, it does help. For the other 2 individuals.
Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say like a quote that comes to mind is like, if it is to be, it's up to me. It's all on you. Like you own it. In the military, you can sit like there's, you know, we all know it. There's like folks in your platoons or your squads, if the teams you're in, that just, I'm like, why are you here? And we're getting paid the same. Like I'm working I'm doing your job and then some. In sales, that's not really how it works. Like you put in the effort and you crush, like you will make more money than everyone. Like, and I love that about sales, but that was a hard lesson to learn. And I think another quote that comes to mind is like, luck is the residue of design. Like if you can design and structure and discipline yourself to execute on that and take complete ownership of your own business and just treat it as like, you're going to get this done, like luck will follow you and you will be successful. Those 2 lessons I couldn't stress more, especially entering in the world of SaaS sales.
Cool. I can't follow up with that. I think those two are great answers. So, yep, that's awesome.
Thank you guys.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Georgina, for your questions there. I'm going to move on to Daniel, and then Eric will be our last question. Then I want to make sure we get you guys to lunch because I don't want to keep you. But Daniel, I'm going to head it over to you. What's your question?
So yeah, this question is for either Sam and Jamie. It's pretty much a follow on to what you guys said before, but we're going to be applying and interviewing for a job soon. So what made you want to work for HubSpot and not for other companies?
That our company gives a shit. It's, I mean, yeah. Are you guys all familiar with Glassdoor or RepView or any of these? I mean, check us out. There's some bias in them, obviously, but like there's a reason we're the number, whatever, 2, 3, 4 company globally to work factor. Like people just care. They want you to have a good life. I mean, a tidbit I'll share on us that's completely unique. Like men and women at HubSpot get 16 weeks of fully paid parental leave. Like it's a weird small example, but like that's insane. Companies don't do that in real life. Again, for men and women in sales, they cover your commission for that. It's one little example that just goes to like our company truly cares about making people's life better. And like our VP said it on a meeting the other day. He's like, you're doing your job wrong if you're working more than 40 hours a week. Like work hard, work smart. Don't kill yourself here 12 hours a day because it's not worth it, and like have a life.
Love that. Sam?
Could not agree more. I mean, I started my sales career working 15, 16-hour days and just grinding, getting after it, which was good. Like it helped me kind of set myself up for success, but HubSpot just gets it. We're built different, and Jamie touched on all that. So.
Cool. Great answers there. And then Eric, drive us home with the last question. Then I want to share some last closing thoughts. Go ahead, Eric.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Vinny, Jamie, and Tim. Appreciate it. Climate is a huge thing. Climate is everything as far as an organization that I've learned in X amount of time in the Army. And quite frankly, it looks like HubSpot's got a great climate based on the three guys, all three of you guys in here. My last question is more personal. Is there such thing as too far remote? Like someone's working remote, but not even in the same time zone. Is that a big deal? More of a personal question.
That's a good question because Jamie's on West Coast, Sam's East Coast. You guys take it home. Go ahead.
Non-factor. What about you, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you get your job done, I mean, it's all within reason. My whole team is actually East Coast. I'm West Coast. And again, for the past week and a half, I was working from the beach and I did all my one-on-ones walking the boardwalk in San Diego. It's just like, whatever. I was working 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I got my job done. So if you need to go to Europe for a week and work, cool. I mean, it's all probably within reason. Like you don't want to work an 8-hour time difference. I did that one time for a company. I sold to London from California and I had to get to work at 1 a.m. and it was challenging. But does that answer what you were talking about kind of?
Yeah, the Army used to have a term called discipline initiative. And so you had your left and right limits, but you were able to be creative. And as long as you accomplish the goal, accomplish what you're getting after, that was the most important. So that was my curiosity. I'm actually moving to Thailand. And so I don't even know if that's a fit for any company out here. But I figure tech is the closest. And if that works, it's cool. If not, I mean, I just keep looking. I'm just curious.
I mean, in tech, any of these companies like HubSpot has an APAC presence, right? We have an office in Singapore. We have an office in Australia. So you likely wouldn't apply for a US job, but you'd be same times. I mean, like you'd be same time zone as Australia and they're all English speaking. So I'd say there's certainly opportunity. You just got to look a little creatively at it.
I appreciate it, Jamie. I saw the Singapore office and I knew the Australia stuff. So it just looks like a great company and I look forward to just prepping and just trying it out.
Love it. Cool. I know we're 1 minute past the hour, so I want to respect Jamie and Sam's time because they're sales reps. Time is money. I'm very much in tune with that. So I just want to thank them both for their time. I'm going to share my screen really quick just to give you, again, names. And if you want to connect with them on LinkedIn, all of us on LinkedIn, please do. This is us. And yeah, just quick round of applause for Sam and Jamie. Thank you both for sharing your perspective. Love that. Thank you for joining. It was so cool. I was like, anyone want to join the lunch and learn? And they were both like, absolutely, like no question asked. So I just really appreciate that so much. And they're always really big supporters. So thank you all. And yeah, just some like quick CTA call to action when it comes to like just opportunities at HubSpot. I want to just like kind of put this out there. You're probably seeing on LinkedIn, a lot of companies laying off, hiring freezes galore, all that good stuff happening. I just want to put it out there because I think some kind of just like miscommunication happened, but we are not on a hiring freeze at HubSpot. So we are hiring, we are still hiring, BDR, account executive, all over. So my only ask is if you're interested in starting an interview process as you end your program, reach out to me here. It doesn't matter which role you're in. I want to make sure you have a really great experience, whether it's in sales or outside of sales. Please don't just apply on your own because you might get someone who might not know that you're from Sales Platoon and give you the time and process and prep that you need. So let me know which roles you're interested in. We're hiring. We're going to make sure we time it with when you're ending the program so that we can obviously make sure it's matched up to your timeline. So just quick call there. Want to make sure you all know because I know that you were told something different. And yeah, just gonna leave it there. Lonnie, anything else that you wanted to wrap up with? Sorry.
No, thank you very much. I think this fireside chat forum is different than what we've normally seen, and I loved it. I think it was a lot of great information. So appreciate you all for coming. Look forward to the next time. And I know there's definitely some candidates interested in HubSpot, so we'll get them in touch with you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you all, everybody. Enjoy your lunch. Sorry to keep you waiting, and I will see you soon.